Everyone's talking about AI. At IU, we are too. In this segment of AI and You, we will talk with Dr. Sagar Samtani from the Kelley School of Business, Bloomington. I'm your host, Kevin Jones.
From the Indiana Public Media Met Studio on the campus of Indiana University, this is State of Inquiry, a video podcast series of expert-led conversations highlighting the impact of IU research. In this season, Dr. Kevin Jones guides us through AI and You, navigating the new frontier. Over the course of 4 episodes, speaking with experts, innovators, and everyday people, reshaping what we know and how we live. Dr. Jones is an AI strategist at IU Columbus and a thought leader and educator with over 30 years of experience empowering workforces and integrating innovative technologies ethically. He has served as leader of the 2024 Indiana University Generative AI Task Force and a panel moderator of the World Summit AI Conference. I'm Eddie Stewart. This is episode 4 of AI and You, Navigating the New Frontier.
I'm delighted to welcome Dr. Sagar Samtani to the podcast. Dr. Samtani is a highly decorated professor in the Kelley School of Business at Indiana University and the founding director of its Data Science and AI Lab. He also previously served as, the director of the AI for Business Intelligence Research Center at Taiwan Semiconductor Manufacturing Company. For those of you who don't know, that's TMSC, all right? Dr. Samtani's research is critical because he's at the forefront of developing AI-powered solutions to combat pressing societal challenges in cybersecurity and business. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you, Kevin. Appreciate it.
You know, when we think about this, your work is so practical and so experiential. Tell us about your work and even tell us a little about your experience in leadership at TMSC.
Yeah, I've been in the artificial intelligence space for about 10 years now. So I started working in AI back in 2014, before it was really started to take off in the public main eye. And I focused a lot initially on doing AI for cybersecurity applications, because we were really noticing that a lot of organizations were struggling with cybersecurity. And part of the reason why was because they were having difficulty managing a lot of the data within their organizations as such. So that's where a lot of my work originated from. And when I joined the Kelley School of Business back in 2020, I was really focused on trying to build out a data science and AI lab that would help to build out students' capabilities in being able to cut through the hype of what AI can do and actually operationalize AI for different types of application areas. And initially it was in cybersecurity, working a lot in doing things like threat intelligence about identifying emerging threats from the dark web or different types of key hackers on the dark web and so on, to more mental health applications of seeing on how AI could actually help out in detecting, being able to help provide therapeutic services, and so on. So even though a lot of my work was in the research end of building different types of techniques and models in those application areas, over the last year, and really over the last 3 years, I've been involved with TSMC and helping build out their AI for Business Intelligence Research Center, where I got a great hands-on experience in being able to take systems that were being more proof of concept and research oriented and then pushing them into production and helping to actually address some of those problems that TSMC was facing in a geopolitical climate and environment. So that in that situation, I got more into the team building of how do you recruit AI talent, how do you go about scoping problems that are important to TSMC, and then building AI solutions that may not be the most cutting edge from a research point of view, but actually could have practical utility and are put into production environments within TSMC. So a broad range of experiences over the last decade, ranging from the research end to the more applied and integrated into practice perspective as well.
See, this is just amazing. Some of the people that are just in our environment like you who are doing not just the research work, but also in the marketplace doing the work for organizations. Well, let's talk a little bit more about your research. And what type of questions are you trying to answer with your research typically?
My research lab focuses on two major application areas. One is in cybersecurity and the other one is in mental health. And how did I come upon mental health? Let me answer that question first, because it's a little bit unusual to have that kind of foray in. But in my cybersecurity work, which is really where I was trained quite extensively, what I noticed was that when cybersecurity professionals went into their workplaces, they would often face a lot of burnout. Because they're constantly fighting fires, and there were a lot of issues that were coming up in terms of being able to be on all the time, and then it just wears them down over a period of time. So there was a lot of attrition in the workforce. So I started to ask the questions around mental health, first focus on cybersecurity professionals, and then broadening it out to college students and to other area or other populations that also facing mental health concerns. But fundamentally, what we're trying to do in the cybersecurity area is that we're focused quite extensively on identifying what are the potential attacks that adversaries may pose against an organization, and also what are the vulnerabilities that the organization may possess that would let an attacker circumvent their security controls that they've invested in. So that's on the cybersecurity side. And on the mental health side, we're now expanded out the range of populations beyond just the cybersecurity workplace professionals to students, to professionals, to also senior citizens and so on, going all the way, looking across the spectrum from detection to recommendation of the appropriate services. Many people don't realize that there's 65 different types of therapeutic services that exist, depending on the type of mental health condition that you may have. And then also providing the types of mental health therapy that typically a lot of professionals would try to seek to deliver, but they're often very short-staffed in nature. But both of those streams of research are really underpinned by a couple of key criteria. One is that they're both very organization-centric. So in the cybersecurity perspective, since we are at a business school, like how does these new cybersecurity capabilities affect the organization and their ability to effectively identify what adversaries may be doing or identify the vulnerabilities in their environment. And then also from the mental health perspective, being able to proactively look at what are some of the potential detection mechanisms that we could have to identify when people are expressing depressive behaviors or anxious behaviors and so on, and what are the right types of therapy that could be provided. So that's really the first assumption, is that we're taking it from an organizational perspective. But number two is that how could AI help in those areas, which is, the data that's around being able to model adversarial behaviors, or the data that's around to be able to help manage vulnerabilities or identify the different types of mental health concerns and so on. We're really taking a very data-centric approach and then building our AI capabilities on top of that to exploit those data characteristics and keep in mind the tasks that we're trying to accomplish as well.
Your research is very practical in so many ways. And so let's talk a little different now. Let's talk about your research, AI in general, and society, okay? And one of the things we'd like to understand is, what do you see are current AI technologies that affect us? Because sometimes we don't realize that, AI has been here, is behind the scenes, sometimes right in front of us. It's not just ChatGPT. Could you talk about some of those?
Yeah, I'd love to, Kevin. I think one of the key things that I always try to teach in my classes is that AI was not invented in 2022. The term artificial intelligence has been around for a lot longer than that. It was really coined in 1955 at a Dartmouth conference. John McCarthy came up with the term artificial intelligence, but even beyond that, Alan Turing and his work in the early 1900s, and then all the way going back to even some of the philosophical roots in Aristotle, Socrates, and so on about can a machine think? Can a machine do what a human is good at? And I think one of the key things with artificial intelligence is that it's always gone through these AI summers and AI winters. And meaning that there's often a lot of hype around artificial intelligence, and then that's quickly followed up by a winter around artificial intelligence as well. One of the examples around this is that once we figured out how to formulate a neural network, we just simply didn't have the computational resources for a long time, or the data to be able to effectively train it and at a scale that would actually be accessible for many individuals. So when we think about AI today, I think that AI has actually been around a lot longer than just ChatGPT, and it's been pervading our life for quite a bit of time. And I'll give two examples that I think are particularly pertinent to many individuals. Our spam filter on our inbox is a form of originally was a form of rule-based AI. It was taking rules of what does spam look like, and then it would categorize the email into your inbox or into the junk email folder. So that's a very rudimentary form of AI that came out decades ago and has been around for many of us and has been used quite extensively for individuals. So that's one. But if you think about even the role of entertainment, say, for example, the Netflix recommendation system or the Uber recommendation system or being able to price effectively. Those are things that are affecting us on a daily basis if we're using these services to be able to identify what are the different types of needs that the consumer may have and then be able to respond to that appropriately. So AI has taken its shape and form in that way as well for a long time now. Which is very different than the way that AI is being perceived writ large right now. When we think about artificial intelligence in 2025, we typically think about things like ChatGPT, the large language models that are actually able to generate content for us. And then we think about agents, agents being able to perform those tasks for us, be able to look at different services like our Google Drive or OneDrive and Calendar and be able to perform those tasks for us. So the nature of artificial intelligence has changed quite dramatically, but it's been around for a lot longer than what people realize. And it's still relatively young as well. I mean, 1955 is not as lengthy of a history as, say, for example, the physical sciences, for instance.
That's right. That's interesting. You mentioned the concept of the AI winter. I was at a conference in Doha, and someone asked me, aren't we entering a period of an AI winter? I said, no, I think we're more of an AI summer.
Yeah.
He didn't particularly like my answer, but I don't see us in an AI winter right now. Do you?
I don't see us in an AI winter right now. The way I'll summarize it is that the AI craze that's happening at the moment is largely around AI infrastructure. So if we look at the AI infrastructure, the NVIDIA, the AMDs, the TSMCs, the Broadcoms, the Marvells, and so on, they're providing the chips, they're providing a lot of the GPUs, they're providing a lot of the infrastructure for us to be able to build applications on top of. So we're really in that phase that the early days of the internet was on, which was how do we build out the right set of infrastructure such that we can then go ahead and have applications built on top of it. So if you think about the App Store, for example, that was built upon mobile or built upon smartphones, and those smartphones are built upon internet technology, we're in that AI infrastructure phase where it's the foundation that's going to set itself up very nicely for applications and for developers to come in and to be able to build out new types of programs that are going to help facilitate different types of downstream applications. For example, booking of tickets would be one, right? Yes. Calendar management would be another. And in the case of higher education, how do you use artificial intelligence and agentic workflows to do things like reimbursements for faculty when they come back from trips, or automatic rubric generation and grading and so on. So we're in the early stages of even the AI infrastructure environment. We're seeing a lot of development of data centers and also these the idea of nuclear power plants being able to power a lot of these data centers. And so we're still in the early stages of that. But I think the summer is still very exciting right now. Yes. There's a lot of opportunity that we have not tapped into yet.
Well, that's and for people like you and I talking about it, this sounds exciting, right? However, there's this other side, and many people are concerned about this, and that's, work tasks and roles are changing. What do you foresee are those changes? And I know it's a big, broad question, but what do you see are the ways that work tasks and roles are going to be changing over the next 1 to 3 years?
Yeah, I don't think that we're going to be in a situation where AI is going to straight up take jobs. and eliminate people from job roles. I think that there's going to be a natural upskilling that's going to happen in the way that people are going to have to think about AI in their workforce. So, for example, report writing. Some jobs require a report that's written every week. AI can help facilitate or accelerate some of those things. So it can help redefine some of those job roles that we may have conventionally seen. But I think that the issue is not necessarily going to be on just what our current workforce is going to look like, right? I mean, there's going to be a natural set of upskilling, and some organizations have a culture where they don't fire people or they don't get rid of people and so on. I think the real effect is going to be, what do the new job descriptions for the next 5 years look like? That's, I think, where the interesting part is going to be. How much are they going to emphasize the use of artificial intelligence? How much are they going to phase out some of these older roles such that you're able to go ahead and bring in the talent that is going to be necessary for the culture and organization to grow? Oftentimes what I've learned is that these organizations that have been around for a while, that have legacy systems and legacy approaches and so on, are often the slowest to adopt artificial intelligence because it's more difficult for them to be able to turn their head. They have less agility relative to some of the newer and younger startups and so on that can be very quick and agile in terms of these new developments. So I think we're going to start to see a lot more shifts in the new job roles that are coming up over the next 3 to 5 years, as opposed to existing job roles changing substantially, which is just going to be a natural upskilling that's going to happen there. Of course, there's exceptions to the rule, right? I mean, there's massive layoffs that are happening in the industry. I'm not denying that whatsoever, and a shift towards using more AI-based approaches and so on. But writ large, those are companies that are mega scale companies, right? But the SMBs in the country have a different kind of perspective on this.
And even when you look at percentage of the workforce, that even Microsoft, that they reduced it wasn't a large percentage of their workforce. Again, if you're one of those people, of course it matters. But when we think about, has AI led to this massive disruption of the workforce? The answer is no. But something else you said that makes a lot of sense, and I've seen it myself, whether it's in Montreal, or whether it's Dubai, or whether it's somewhere else. Everybody's trying to figure out what are those skills and what are those competencies that we're going to need going forward. And one thing we know for sure, we can't just stay still in whatever role we're in. Which brings me to a question of, what are some significant challenges or concerns that we need to address proactively as AI becomes more integrated in work and our lives?
Yeah, I think the number one is probably an unpopular answer, is just to watch the hype. I think that's the real important thing. When you look at artificial intelligence over the last 3 years, which is really when it's come out into the public's eye significantly, and we'll take ChatGPT as an example of this. ChatGPT, when people first started to see its generative capabilities, started to overestimate its ability to do certain types of tasks. And so what we've seen in organizations today is that ChatGPT is a great horizontal layer across many different business functions to do certain types of tasks quite well. Brainstorming is a good example of that. That's what I use ChatGPT most for, is that can I brainstorm different ways of writing up my content or different alternative strategies that I had not considered before. Instead of having a 3-hour Teams or Zoom call with one of my colleagues, I now have just a 5 to 10 minute chat with ChatGPT to brainstorm some ideas. So brainstorming, editing of content is also very good at that. Being able to go ahead and find certain types of relationships between different documents so you don't have to read all of them right out of the gate. And so those types of general tasks ChatGPT is quite good at, but that's a horizontal layer. What people are grappling with right now is that maybe ChatGPT isn't the best in every single vertical application, right? So if we take human resources or supply chain management or cybersecurity as examples, each of those have their own types of compliances that they have to follow, that ChatGPT may not be the best out of the box. So how do you operationalize a big model like that that's closed source? And who knows, maybe in 2 to 3 weeks from this podcast, this could be an open source version of that. We don't know, right? But how do we take those off-the-shelf models and then operationalize them in different vertical applications while considering things like compliance, while considering things like the nature of the data that's in there, the end use cases, and so on. And when you put it in those verticals, that's when it starts to become quite interesting in that the hype starts to fade very quickly. You start to realize that a lot of those use cases that are specific in particular vertical application areas just don't work with the general purpose approach anymore. So I think that's where we're going to start to see a lot of that AI application development happen as the infrastructure starts to get settled more, is that it's going to be in those vertical applications. Certainly the horizontal is going to remain.
Yes.
There's no doubt about that. But the number one caution that I would have is cut through the hype.
Yes.
In reality, cut through the hype. Let's go past the demos that we're seeing from big tech right now, and see on how does it actually work and operationalize in our context. So I'll belabor this point a little bit further,
No,
Kevin,
please.
if you don't mind.
Yeah.
In my lab, the data science and AI lab, we're very focused on cybersecurity and mental health applications. And if you look at a lot of these large language models that are off the shelf, when it comes out, you'll typically see that there's going to be reports that come with it that say that this model performed X percentage well on these standard benchmark data sets.
Yes.
And these benchmark data sets may be things like multiple choice questions. It may be things such as math reasoning and so on. Well, I'll tell you, Kevin, I don't remember the last time I had a multiple choice question in my practical life, honestly. I don't.
That's right.
So what I've worked on with my students is that it's great that these new models come out. I appreciate the fact that there's some standard benchmarking that's out there. But what we're going to do is that we're going to have our own data sets related to cyber and mental health that we have curated that we know are practically relevant, and they may be theoretically guided as well. And we're going to operationalize and see how well do those benchmark data, how do those new models work well on our benchmark data set. So we have our own internal leaderboard, basically, of this model performs well in these types of tasks for us, for the tasks that we care about that are in particular verticals or in particular application areas. So that helps us cut through the hype quite quickly as well. So we're setting all this stuff up with the idea that we're going to start to move more towards the verticals and less so through the horizontal, so that we can cut through the hype and really be cautious on the way that we're evaluating AI.
Yeah, it sounds very much like you're working toward one of the great promises of AI, that being personalization. Tools that work for us, technology that works for us, not just general technologies that we have to adapt to, but the technology we choose can adapt to us. And to me, that sounds like a great opportunity. Now, one last question for you, and this has been a tremendously insightful conversation. When we think about being prepared and engaged, what should people do, basically? What are steps that people should choose to become more deeply engaged with technology, be prepared for the potential role changes, potential position changes, description changes? What should people do to be equipped for the future?
I think it's a very simple answer that it may not be the most exciting one, which is accessibility is key for technology adoption.
Oh.
So how do we make AI more accessible for people? Very practical tip, very simple tip. Probably the most important tip that I could give today is take the ChatGPT program, pin it on your dock on your computer, and also have it as your home page.
Interesting.
Or whatever AI tool or whatever AI flavor you want. Sometimes, with the best of intentions, if it's not there right in front of us, we may forget about it, right? We're in that critical phase right now of like, how much are people going to adopt the technology? And one thing I learned from my experiences is that if it's already part of a platform that you use on a daily basis, if it's already right in front of you, then your ability to use it is going to go up. You're going to naturally upskill yourself in some capacity.
That's true.
Right? Now, Google may not like my answer very much because Google is the homepage for many people, but we've started to see Google search trends start to drop quite a bit and so on. But I think that accessibility is going to be the first key element and the most practical element to being able to naturally upskill yourself, because you're going to want to use it more if it's available to you, or you're going to be maybe not want it, more inclined to use it more because you have it at your fingertips more easily.
And that's such an important point because one of the things we've always talked about is the digital divide. Okay, this is actually an opportunity because if you have access to the internet, you have access to a generative AI model of some kind, whether it be ChatGPT or Gemini or Perplexity or Claude or something. And I like that perspective is you have to work with it, learn it. And also something else that I like to say to people is don't be discouraged when maybe it doesn't do all the stuff you've heard it do. That's that point about the hype. But the more you learn about it, the more you figure out how to do it. And not to take us all back too far, but it was the same thing when we started with search. Okay, we would get the first things that come up in the search, and we're like, oh, okay, this wasn't what I'm looking for. And we learned, okay, you have to search a little differently, or maybe not use one browser, but use another browser. Same thing here. So I think that's wise advice. So, the time just flies right by and could spend the whole day with you, but we'll wrap it up right here. So thank you very much, Dr. Samtani. We appreciate your work. And again, it's such a wonderful opportunity for us to have a resource like you right here in Bloomington. So thank you for coming out to AI and You.
Thank you, Kevin.
Everyone's talking about AI. At IU, we are too. In this segment of AI and You, we will talk with Dr. Kun Huang. And he's from Indiana University, Indianapolis, and we'll tell more about him in a moment. I'm your host, Kevin Jones. We are so pleased today to have with us Dr. Kun Huang, Professor and Chair of the Department of Biostatistics and Health Data Science at IU, and Associate Director for Data Science of the IU Simon Comprehensive Cancer Center. Welcome to State of Inquiry, the program that explores the pressing issues shaping our world. Today, we're diving into a fascinating and rapidly evolving world of artificial intelligence in our segment, AI and You. We're incredibly fortunate to have Dr. Huang with us. To tell you a little bit more about him, he is a leading expert in health data science and AI at Indiana University. He and his colleagues have developed AI models to automatically read histopathology slides to predict breast cancer patients' responses to chemotherapy. Did I say that right? Histopathology slides. Wow. They also invented AI algorithms for integrating large genomic data to discover new biomarkers, predicting the outcomes of multiple types of cancers. Currently, they are developing advanced AI methods for Alzheimer's disease drug discovery. Thank you so much for being with us here, Kun.
Thank you very much for having me.
To start, let's talk about you. Tell us about yourself and what led you to focus on AI research.
Thanks, Kevin. I'm a professor in Department of Biostatistics and Health Data Science now. My background is actually mixed. I started as a biology student in college, but that got me really interested about learning behavior, how brain works, how do we learn things, and that eventually promoted me to pursue a PhD in electrical engineering on machine learning and computer vision. Basically, like how can we apply the principles we learned from biology to train machine models to learn about what's going on around us. Of course, at that time, the applications was mostly in robotics. How do you guide a drone to land? How do you reconstruct the 3D from multiple pictures type of things? But later, I joined medical school as a faculty member, and what I found out was what I learned in electrical engineering and machine learning and AI can be applied to help to do biomedical research. That got me really excited, and so I've been staying on that area for the past 20 years.
Wow. I found that is so true, is that not everyone who's doing work in this area is just simply a computer scientist. They
Right.
bring multiple disciplines to bear upon the study of AI, and you surely are representative of that. Can you describe your specific area of AI research for us, and what kind of questions are you trying to answer?
So my research is mostly focused on the area called biomedical imaging and bioinformatics. So essentially, if you think about it, our main challenge is the human diseases. Mm-hmm. And most of the human diseases are very complex. So if someone goes to a hospital and or goes to a clinic, there have been multiple type of measurements has been taken. And in many cases, large data sets can be generated, and there are many different types of data. So our focus is how do we really effectively integrate those large data sets and multiple type of data sets so that really we can mine the data using AI to find meaningful discoveries like biomarkers that can help with the diagnosis. Sometimes it's hard to say which disease this is, or sometimes it's hard to say which subtype of the disease is. So really trying to help with the diagnosis or to subtyping of the patients. And then also eventually help to guide the design of the therapy or treatment schemes or drug discovery. So identify drug targets, identify markers, identify patient populations. So that's really what we are trying to do in precision medicine. So essentially we are trying to integrate a large data set using AI to enable precision medicine.
So you're seeking kind of faster pathways, maybe more effective pathways by using AI?
Right. So essentially, the precision medicine, the goal is really trying to treat the right patient with the right drug at the right time. Right. So we first want to find the right patients and also want to match with the right drug or right treatment. So that is really the goal. We want to use a large data set from not only one patient, but 1,000 patients, learn the model, learn the heterogeneity among the populations, and then really identify to see which drug might be most effective for this group of patients. So need to find the model, find the marker for those.
This seems very complex, to say the least. So can you help us understand it from the perspective of the impact of this type of research? And, how does this type of research affect the general public?
Right. So for me, I mentioned mostly we focus on complex diseases, and life is short. I cannot do everything. So our main focal areas, one is on cancer, and another is Alzheimer's disease. And so for cancer, the treatment, the challenge is there are many different types of treatments for patients. And as I mentioned, how do you select the best treatment for that specific patient or personalized treatment? So that is one part of the goal. So we want to increase the effectiveness of the treatment for the patients. For Alzheimer, it's a little bit different. Alzheimer, I think our understanding on Alzheimer's disease is still limited. And so I'm very fortunate able to be part of the Alzheimer Drug Discovery Center in IU. Actually, it's a joint IU-Purdue center funded by NIH. So really what we want to do is first to see what are the potential drug targets that we can mine from the large amount of data, and then work with the biologists, the medicinal chemists, or the Alzheimer researchers to see if we can develop drugs. Of course, then another part is once we find a potential drug target, can we use AI to help to design the drug more efficiently? And so that's another part of work.
So you're really looking at, AI is not replacing the work, but AI is a supplement to the work. And, some people misunderstand. They look at AI as something that is just going to replace us. I mean, we're not going to need physicians because we'll just have the AI answer. What type of thoughts do you have about that in terms of AI being a supplement, a support, or replacement? Do you think about those things?
I mean, I see it as a supplement and helper, and really should be our friend in this world, and at least in this stage. I'll give you an example. It's part of my research is on computational pathology, as I mentioned, right? So we want AI to read the pathology images, and so that can help with the diagnosis of cancer or subtypes of cancer. And I once demonstrated a model we developed. And after that, a pathologist talked to me. He said, well, what you can do there in computer, I can do it in 2 seconds. I said, well, absolutely true. That's why I want to relieve you from doing those work so that you can focus on the harder part of the work. Because he also said the really challenging part is the difficult cases. And since for difficult cases, even we as doctors, we don't know what they are, your AI doesn't even have training data. I said, exactly. That's why we want to use AI to help you so that you don't have to spend too much time on those more straightforward part. And then you can focus on the difficult cases and to really benefit the patient.
And that's something that not everyone understands about the role of physicians. So much of the work is not just in diagnosis and treatment, but it's in paperwork and studying and trying to understand different things. This is a way to, again, free you from some of the things that are necessary but not essential for the physician, right?
Yes. I mean, I think it's in a way still essential, but at the same time, can be, as you mentioned, can be very time consuming. So if they have to spend 5 minutes in writing all the notes and to input every entry manually, then those 5 minutes, we can relieve them from doing that with the help of AI. So they can spend those 5 minutes more with patients. That will be much more helpful for having more accurate diagnosis, but also I think that's going to be a lot of help to the patients and just, even just mentally, psychologically.
Improving the quality of care.
Right, exactly.
What a tremendous objective, and AI is in that mix, eh?
Right. So we even have colleagues in the field who actually is trying to help develop an AI system so that can semi-automatically generate those pathology reports for doctors. And so one pathologist can review it instead of have to type everything, spend all the time to type everything, but they can review it, edit it, and so can be much more faster. So they can really focus on looking at the images, do the diagnosis, integrating other clinical data, make the right decision.
Now, some people are concerned that, if doctors, physicians become dependent on this, that maybe they lose their capabilities. How do you fight off that temptation to depend on the machine rather than to use what you know and what you've learned that is superior, at least right now, superior to what the machine can provide? How do we deal with that?
To me, I think there's at least 2 parts. So one part is really to understand the limit of the AI system, right? So we need to see, we can see the AI system nowadays can do a lot of powerful things. But at the same time, there is always a limit on the system. So really where the limit of the system is. Sometimes it's not accurate. Sometimes it's actually make up things, right? And based on the understanding is all the AI systems actually right now are trained on existing knowledge, right? So with that part of the thing is really to think, second part is to see, then let's place our face on the creativity of the human being. And so focusing more on the discovery part, on the exploration part, which the AI can help but cannot really replace us. I think that's the essential parts.
Yes. The for those people who are predicting our demise because of AI, I always say we might want to think again about that, because as you correctly identified, the training data, the data that they use, well, that comes from us.
Right, exactly.
And so we need to still be in the mix to continue to train these machines, which now even takes me to a thought. Let's talk about AI in society broadly. We've kind of started that discussion a little bit, but for our listeners, when you think about some of the current AI technologies that are already present in our daily lives, what are some of those that we may not even realize, that we're not even tracking on, that are here and may become even more part of how we live and work?
I mean, first I want to point out the word AI is not a new word, right? So I think it was first coined in around 1955, 1956. So it has been there for almost 70 years. And I remember I learned the word AI when I was a kid. That was about 45 years ago.
Yes.
So there actually has been a lot of work and tools developed. We just didn't really, realize sometimes built in. I mean, if one thing is we call credit card company, we say, well, we have an issue, data will automatically say, please say your credit card number. Right? How does the computer system recognize your voice? There is actually a bigger AI system on it and behind it, right? Because it has to recognize everyone's voice, even with accent and dialects. Then, if you go to hospital, and if you go to hospital taking a CT scan, and from the raw X-ray signal to the actually final image that the radiologist can see, and based on that, they actually make measurements. Sometimes say, I want to segment out this brain region, right? Then how do they do that? They cannot totally do it. Nowadays, there are many tools for them to help to, identify regions, do the measurement. Every step, there are actually machine learning AI technologies built in. It's just the company invests a lot. And there are simple things like if you use Photoshop, you say, I want to do a lasso to crop out a piece.
Right.
That is a typical technology, computer vision technology based on AI for that, just one stroke.
Yes.
And so there are many things we may not realize nowadays, but they actually big AI technology behind it.
And that's such an important point because so often we want to think that, this is so new and it's changing everything. Well, as I like to say to people, it's already changed and it's going to continue to be changing.
Right, exactly.
So let's even go a little further here. Looking ahead, can you think about, from your perspective, other AI technologies that are on the horizon? What's coming that's maybe not here presently?
Well, I think one thing is coming is the so-called agentic AI.
Yes.
Right. So there's, 2 years ago, using ChatGPT or using some Gemini is more like for fun. And we tested, we generate interesting images to show to friends, share on social media. But nowadays, when we start to seriously use it, and then actually their technology allows to build system with multiple agents, can chat with each other, but more importantly, can cross-check each other's work. And so this year, essentially, we see a suddenly booming on those kind of agentic AI technology in many different areas, not only just in research, but also actually can have immediate use. In the little bit more, I think one thing going on is more like those physical AI, and because AI is not just to react to a query, potentially it can be used to guide actions, and so those actions could be on drones, could be on other robots. I think that part will be going back to the actual agent part and realization part. I think that's going to be. We may see a booming on that zone.
And that's really important for people to understand that this is not a static technology. It's not something, even though yes, it's been around for 70 years, it is ever evolving. I guess my latest experience of this ever evolving technology was riding in a Waymo in San Francisco, and it's a fascinating experience because. You're watching this machine, which is fueled with AI, navigate the same things that I navigate when I drive. And this is the beginning. We're at the early stages of this, so much more to come. So let me just ask just one more question of you in particular. Actually, I have two questions for you. First is, beyond the workplace, what do you see are some broader societal implications of AI that the public needs to be aware of?
I think I don't have a crystal ball. I cannot really predict the exact changes. But I think one big thing is we need to be prepared for some possibly fundamental changes or some changes something that changes something that we have been taking for granted for a reasonable amount of time. I mean, you mentioned the Waymo. That is actually exactly one example what I see. I mean, I always use the example to say, well, 150 years ago or 120 years ago, you need to be able to ride a horse. It's very common to see people riding horse on the road, and it's just a common skill for you to survive, for you to go to work. Now, very few people can ride a horse, right? But we all know how to drive.
That's right.
But possibly in a generation or two, people don't need to learn how to drive anymore, and because the automatic cars will take it wherever they are. So suddenly, if we can fly 50 years later, we start to say, well, we know how to drive. That's going to be an interesting skill to have, but it's going to be a kind of luxury. You have your own car in that case. So I think it's just going to fundamentally change many times the way we think a lifestyle may look like.
Yes. And what I always say to people is don't be dismissive because it didn't arrive today. When we talk about these things, people say, well, I heard it was supposed to be here and it's not here. Well, stay tuned. Things will change
Flying
over time.
Cars.
Right? Yes, exactly. Well, let me ask you one more question here, if I may. And, this is a harder question in the sense of what do you see are some of the challenges and concerns that we need to address proactively?
Yeah, I think this is something we face. We've been thinking a lot, and especially in a university where we start to see more and more usage of AI. At the same time, there are all kinds of different thoughts regarding how do we evaluate, how do we sit. But to me, I think a couple of things we may need to be cautious about. One is to really understand, as I mentioned before, really understand the limit of the AI tools. Right? It's not something just like an almighty can do everything for every people. And so there are definitely tasks. It will make mistakes. And so we need to understand the limit. And sometimes actually it will actually make up false information. We have experienced firsthand a couple of times already. When we trying to do a literature summary and it gives us a bunch of references, we check they don't actually exist. And it was made up by the AI system.
Yes.
So we have to be very careful about it. That's one thing. But another thing is I think is really to understand we may have a risk of develop a high dependency on AI system. Mm-hmm. And there is a boundary of, using AI very efficiently versus totally dependent on AI. Yeah. If we are too much dependent on AI, actually there are already studies showing for those people who rely on everything on ChatGPT actually have a limited brain, almost reduced brain capacity in certain cases. Yes. So we have to understand it. Another thing is I'm a little bit concerned is I think AI is going to be really prevailing. And so it will be as essential as almost like electricity or internet. Yes. So the continuation of the service, think about if ChatGPT suddenly got disrupted. Actually, it happened earlier this year once. I remember I have seen many social media posts from students saying, I cannot do things today because ChatGPT is down. So that is essentially how do we regulate it? How do we make sure there's always, providers providing tools that can be trusted and with certain quality and with a continuation of service.
Wow. A very, very thoughtful response to that question. Thank you so much. And thank you, Dr. Huang, for taking some time to meet with us today. This has been incredibly insightful. Really has been. And so that concludes our latest segment of AI and You. We thank again Dr. Kun Huang for joining us, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you.
You've been listening to State of Inquiry from IPM.org, recorded at the Indiana Public Media Met Studio on the campus of Indiana University. This has been episode 4 of 4 of AI and You, Navigating the New Frontier, with guest host Dr. Kevin Jones. The production team for this episode of State of Inquiry includes Scott Carmichael, Eddie Stewart, and Nate Wrigley. The director of content at Indiana Public Media is Eric Bolstridge. We welcome your feedback and ideas. Reach us at ipm.org. To support this podcast and the mission of Indiana Public Media, visit ipm.org/donate. And find more podcasts from Indiana Public Media by visiting ipm.org. Thanks for listening.